G'day, welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I've got another video on spider calls. Did one a fair while ago. I would like to go through and do another one now to just freshen things up, not really change, but just go run it again in the way of explaining things to people who don't probably fully understand what we're up to here. So spider calls, we're talking about largely Sam calling the shots for me, the shooter, especially our extreme long range videos. It's relevant everywhere, but especially our extreme long range videos. To start off with, for those folks who say, well, there's a couple of comments I suppose I'm rerunning things for. One would be terrible spotter. We see a fair bit of, which we, listen, I presume at least for people who don't appreciate how good a job Sam does in the way of getting our team, or me, the shooter, largely onto target, is, listen, experienced people know more, would realise how good it is what she's actually doing. I suspect it's largely the fact that it doesn't sound like they think a spotter should, or they don't get an adjustment that they could in their fictional world of adjusting onto target with a military call so they could work out how to do it.
Elevation 8.5 minutes.
On target.
Spotter ready.
Shooter ready.
Right 2 minutes. Right edge. Center hold, no value. Top edge, center hold. Center impact.
So the 9 o'clock is that road?
That is your target. Road. Check parallax and mill.
.41.
Holdover 7.8.
Ready?
Left 0.8. Holdover 7.8.
Ready?
Left 0.4.
Of this video is to go and help what we're actually doing. The other comment would be, that's quite common that we also see, is why don't you let Sam shoot? Why don't you let the girl shoot? Why don't you let your missus shoot? Why don't you let your daughter shoot? All the different ways that comes across. Seen lots of those too. That first of all means you don't watch the channel very much when you say that sort of thing. Sam does get a fair bit of shots and shooting in. But the other side of things when it comes to ELR, no she doesn't, and Sam doesn't like to. It's not something she wants to do. Very, very happy, much more than for me, much more for us, the team, and what she's happy and proud to do is being the spotter to get us onto target. A lot more pressure and a lot more responsibility. It's its own challenge, which is exactly how I look at the shooting. Using the firearm is not the fun thing to do, which I'm sure that people who don't shoot a lot think it is. When it comes to ELR shooting, it has at least as much, if not more, pressure attached to it. So it's not fun. Well, fun to get done, not so much fun to do a lot of the time. A lot of blood, sweat and tears involved in that process. And dollars. But let me get into, I suppose, explain what I'm talking about in the actual video. I suppose what most people refer to or do a lot of mimicking of would be military spotting calls. So, and the logic in the military side of things is that the spotter is the more senior or the more experienced or more knowledgeable, and they're making correction calls. So they will call the correction. 0.2 mil more elevation with another half a wind hold to the right, or basically a wind call that goes to, not something we use, but they will make a correction to the shot. And I can see a very sound logic in the military side of things. not so much about the thing they're doing, but much more about the way they're doing it. The military train, so they'll have spotter trainers that are training snipers to start off with. So that's where things have to start, and that's where, yes, you have to have the senior sniper, whatever that is, designated marksman, shooter, in whatever form, that is then training less senior. And so they will be making the calls to tell them how to adjust on a target. That generally has to then transfer through the training process and through to the active process. To have a system that starts one way and finishes another way doesn't make a lot of sense. Not saying that as teams get in active duty or out there, get more, wherever it is in competition, wherever they end up, don't start to personalize that side of things, but it still has to start in that place where you have the more knowledge coming from the spotter and they're calling a correction. The next bit is that the way the military look at things, in an obvious sense, is they look at each one of those people doing a job, men doing a job, women doing a job, then they are looking at them as a component. They need to be changed out. They need to be able to swap this person out, put someone else, and they're still going to work. They don't have to build a relationship so much. Ultimately, in the elite level side of things, yes, they're still going to need to build a relationship. That's just humans. No matter how military you get, that's just humans. But in the interim side of things, component changing, swap on over, they all have the same language. A little bit the lowest common denominator thing, something that fits all sizes, that sort of stuff, that sort of process. So in that sort of logic, in that sort of situation, there's a lot of logic attached to it. Our way, and what I think is a far better in the elite level, or the making it work for you as an individual level, you're not talking about changing people. You're not talking about needing anything other than the most important thing about any shooter and spotter relationship, or yes, in their shooter and spotter relationship, is communication, concise communication. We both know each other, talking out comparison information without being confused and making it make sense. So I suppose then I'll go into why we do things rather than go any more down what I don't know. I'm not a military trained sniper by any means, police, military, whatever. This has all come out of, all that we do comes out of a mechanic and his missus that went and took up this sort of thing as we started doing this to do something together. We're already 24/7 together. We've worked together for lots of years. So we have been together for lots of years, and we are now in the way we've come up with something that we could do together that suited both of us. We have videos that go through and explain that. But in that situation, when the way we do things, and we always have done it this way, is we find what we're best at and we do that job the best we can, and we get the best result because we've put the best things in the best places. Now, it's not to say that I can't spot. It's not to say that Sam can't shoot. If you watch the channel, you'll see that a lot, as I've mentioned. But it is when it comes to the extreme stuff, especially the ELR stuff, then our attributes are best served by doing it the way we do it, where Sam is the spotter and I am the shooter. And one job's not more fun than the other job, very much so. This is both pressure jobs. We're both very happy to get the job done in the way of get success out of it, but it is in the roles that we're very happy doing. So let's break that down a little bit. The spotter job in our world is very much about observing. So basically observing what's going on out in front, making sure there's no stray stock or no strays in any form that are potentially going to get into our area of shooting. We also worked out a long while ago that we needed to come up with a way to reference distance in the way of measuring the shot. Now, in a reticle spotting scope where you have reticle and that sort of stuff, okay, then you could use mil or MOA, that side of things. Not that common when we started things, and still not that common. Also puts other images in front of you, other lines and bits and pieces in front of you to make it harder to see sometimes in some of those very hard to see shots. So a simple reference that worked from us right from the beginning was the target size. Going simply from whatever that target size is. Ours is generally a 24-inch plate, 24 by 24, so you can see it's a visual reference. But it also works if it's a 2-litre bottle, or it's a Coke can, or it's a larger, smaller, whatever it is. Once it is that target, even if it's a rock, If it's that rock in the full height of the rock, then it's that, the rock size, which you can actually measure. So you can use it for anything with any sort of glass, naked eye, it really doesn't matter. By able to reference that target size or something that we both can see, means we can transfer that information very cleanly and very concisely. And largely then to tell the shooter, me, exactly what she saw. Not the correction, not what she wants me to do, but exactly what she saw. Largely, and also in the minimum, as concise as possible. So minimum words and quickly.
Bottom right, level the right edge, half target low.
The time of things, wind is changing all the time, so the more time it takes to explain something, the more time it takes for a follow-up shot, the more time thinking and distracted by trying to make sense of it. So the less time of all that makes it better. Clean cut, passed on information. I can get my job, make my decisions, reload, shoot fluently, not rushing, but not wasting time because those conditions are changing all the time. So that's Sam's job. That also is done with all sorts of things, from counting. So Sam's very much switched on to be able to count. Learned that over many years of doing this. As soon as it goes bang, Sam is counting, methodically counting to see where the impact is. So we know roughly, experienced enough to know there's going to be 6 or 7 seconds when it goes out to 3,000 yards, or 3,000 meters, depending on what you're using, 8 seconds, 9 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever it is, 2 seconds, all that way for the distance where they're at. That would be something generally the night before. If we're doing something that Sam has in her head, fine. If not, she'll ask me roughly what she'd expect, and that's what she's doing, counting. That is not just out of a weird way of doing things. It's because then for Sam's way of doing things, she can then focus her attention on a half-second interval far more intently over trying to see exactly where it is. And that can be very complicated on the first shot, specifically difficult ground. But basically, that's the moment of massive attention to do things. And Sam's very, very good at doing that. And then pass on as quickly and concisely to me exactly where the impact was. Now that works for a very specific reason, and I suppose it changes. The first shot, if we're 6 targets or 8 targets away, then it might actually have been 8 and Sam said 5.
Tall and left. Sorry, 1 target tall, 3 targets left.
It might have been 5 and Sam said 8. The first lot don't matter so much, and sometimes when they're further away, it'll actually be target frames. Really doesn't matter too much on that level. We're not in an active fire situation, we're shooting on target. It was the first round, so maybe there's a little bit of cold bore, that sort of stuff there. It's a rough idea so I can make a follow-up shot with the correction attached to it. So I know roughly where it is and we walk it in. So taking 3 shots to get close to target isn't a stress for our way of doing things when it's target shooting. And as you'll find as we get closer to target, Sam's calls will be far more accurate with 1 target or half a target or whatever it is, and see things much more cleanly. Simply through that attention and it is where it is, it's not catching over the side of your eye and then doing an assessment of where it was. Actually, it was right there and be able to see it really easy, a lot easier to retain the memory.
Left and low. 1.5 targets low and left.
And done very, very quickly. So for people who think that that's easy to do, when you actually have 1/10 of a second, sometimes is all that little spike of whatever it was you saw. Sometimes the dust hangs it nicely, sometimes it doesn't.
Right and low. 1 target low, 4 targets right.
Doesn't really matter. That's for me, I want to know where it landed. So that instant takes a lot of attention to do that. But then by passing on concisely what that was, in few words, means I have, like I said, that makes it faster for me, and there's less to jumble up what's going on in my head. I've got a fair bit going on. I'll actually explain that in a minute. The last bit on that concise call, if it's unclear, then Sam will exactly where it was. Then Sam, you'll hear through our videos, will pass on exactly what she saw. As the flag moved, or the target shook, or I think there was a blade of grass over in there.
Oh, just behind. Thinking it went 9 o'clock, but just behind target.
To explain that bit, that's not to make things just give more words, to talk more. That's very much about, okay, that's what I saw. So then we can work together. Then me, the shooter, that information is coming to me. In my way of looking at things, I'm the only one that can know, or the shooter is the only one that can actually use that information and work out a correction. I'm the only one that saw what the rifle did or exactly where the crosshairs were when the trigger broke. I'm the only one that saw what the rifle did when I shot it. And because I'm there touching it, feeling, using the ammo, that sort of stuff, I did the maths all to start off with. Means that I then can put those other pieces of information together, including the rounds prior to that. I'm making sense of things, trying to work out what the wind's doing, sometimes trying to work out what the ammo's doing or the rifle's doing, and make sense of it. And all those details matter, and it is very much a thinking game to work out what's going on. ELR is not like 100-yard shooting or even 1,000-yard shooting. Once you move past that point, past the mile, at the mile it starts, but then it moves into, there's another, it's whether it's intuition or whatever you call it, but it is actually making sense of patterns and rhythms and what's actually happening out there. So a fair bit of thinking going on that side of things. So I don't want to be listening more than I just want that information, and then I can put it all together and then do it as quickly as possible to follow up.
Tall and left. Saw it. Okay. 3 targets left, a quarter of a target tall.
I don't want those conditions to change any more than they have to. I don't want to rush, but those conditions are going to move. So the closer I get to that, or making sense of that, the smoother it is. So I'll come back to what we do is very, very, very much about what suits us. If what you do suits you perfectly, then for sure, don't change it. Don't fix what ain't broken. But the way we do, and part of what we do, and part of how we get onto our ELR side of things is the specifics of us doing exactly how anything that works really well works. Is the people best at the job do the job. So I'm better at the ELR shooting because of the thought pattern, thought processes that go with it. I also, the bigger rifles don't bother me. They do bother Sam, and trying to figure out the rest of the bits and pieces, that's not so good. When it's a direct, dialed in point, make the correction according to what it is, then Sam's very good at that. That's why there's little to no difference between us shooting up to 1,000 yards. Sam's very, very good at that side of things in the smaller calibers that don't have too much recoil then, and happy at it. As for the joy of the whole thing, which I think a lot of people mistake ELR shooting for, that it's got to be a lot of fun to shoot the big rifles and that sort of stuff. Listen, just as having an experience, yes, I can understand that would be that way for a lot of people. For us, the ELR shooting is much more there's an enjoyment out of accomplishing something without any question. An enjoyment for us as a team, what we set out to do, accomplishing something. There's enjoyment to create good content that's interesting, that looks good and has that challenge attached. Yes, totally, there's that. But there's a lot of pressure attached to what we do. So it does take a lot of effort. There is a lot of blood, sweat and tears involved with the process of getting there, and funds involved in that case also. But to actually think that the likes of, why don't you let her have a shot type thing, or to think of it as anything other than doing the absolute best and the best way we can get to that place, logic that comes out of a mechanic and a nurse. That's what Sam used to do. We then have used our best skills to do what we do. And that is good communication skills, that's good observation skills, that's good intuition and shooting skills with the engineering to do it and the equipment to do it. That is something that is, listen, definitely best foot forward is the way we do that side of things. And I think for any elite level to look at it in the trying to duplicate a process that is designed for the everybody fits everybody mold doesn't make a lot of sense to me, unless you're in the fit everybody world. From all the stuff I've ever seen and spoken to, all of the stuff, even in the top level operators in the military side of things start to change over into a personal sense, because that is actually the best way to do things. That is where things think the best. Observation, passing on observation, learning those skills, learning that communication, and to a large degree talking less. the less words, the done more concisely just lets people think cleaner. It's not a conversation, it is a job. And so to keep it into that bite-sized information works a lot better for the thinking side of it. Anyway, listen, that's enough of me ranting about that one there. If I haven't mentioned before, this is Sam's spotting scope, which is the Night Force in the TS82. We set it up on a ball head type of thing. It's a great scope. We've used various scopes, but for our stuff works really nicely. No reticle inside there, but simple to use and something that I use not enough. Sam it's her right-hand man, and she's very, very familiar, very fast at it, at using that side of things. But of course, she's also managing the long-range camera at the same side of things. So a lot going on in our world when we do that sort of stuff. That's the reason we do what we're doing. I hope it was some value to you. And other than that, thank you very much for checking in. I'll catch you next time.